guys. How's everybody today? We've got visitors, don't we, Eowyn?
We sure do.
We have one more coming as well, and this is Memorial Day weekend in the United States. So we thought we'd celebrate by talking about the Medal of Honor winners that we have on WikiTree. And if we have time, we're going to fit in the Roll of Honor as well. But we brought guests. This time, Eowyn and I thought we'd do something a little different. And we thought we'd do something just a little bit different. And instead of inviting a project leader per se, we invited fellow WikiTreeers that have been in the military. So let me, without further ado, introduce our esteemed guest here. We've got Aaron. Aaron, you can wave. And as we do that, Aaron was in the Navy. And I just adore the little dress on your daughter. It's so cute. And that's also your husband, right? On the top?
Yes, in the blue.
And then we have Anne. Anne was in the Army. Anne's not waiting. Right. Anne's going to sing for us too, right?
What's that?
You're going to sing as well?
No.
And Anne was in the Army, and these are pictures of Anne. I love the formal one, but I always love you guys in camos too, because that shows you're probably day in, day out. You guys were hard workers with that. And then we have Mike, and there's only one picture in this entire world of Mike as a Marine.
I avoid cameras.
And for those that you might not know, Mike is my husband. So we've got our esteemed guest here for bingo. And welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So what we're going to do is we're going to showcase the Medal of Honor winners. So I asked each of you three to pick one that you wanted to discuss. That's one WikiTree. Eowyn, this gave us a little bit of a bonus too, because they had to go and freshen up the profiles.
Nice.
So we put them to work just a little bit. And guys, I have the first bingo card listed. I'm going to put it up on the chat one more time. You all get your cards ready. And Aaron, we're going to go probably with yours first. So let me see if I can pull this up. Give me just a second, because obviously I prepared for bingo and not for the Medal of Honor winners. And you were going to go with Oscar Palmer Austin, correct?
Yes.
There we go.
All right.
A little bit. Why'd you pick him? And who is he? And tell us about him.
So Oscar Austin was a Marine. He was killed in Vietnam. And I chose him because I actually served on the destroyer that was named for him, DDG 79.
Sorry, I got the wrong one. Go ahead.
And his mother and his aunt were actually our ship sponsors.
Oh, really?
So it was really amazing to be able to meet them and to hear about him. And while I was on, I believe it was 2009 or 2010, he had a nephew who grew up hearing the stories of, what he did and that he was a Medal of Honor winner. And he actually became rise through the ranks and was an Army general. And so he came on board and we had a big ceremony and he got to meet the crew. It was really, really amazing.
Oh, wow.
And I even have my...
Oh, that's cool.
Oscar Austin. This is my actual ball cap that I wore on the ship, which is why it's all ratty. But this was our working uniform.
Oh, really? So the hat was, you wore the hat because it was the name of the ship as well. So that was a part of your uniform.
Yeah. And we sort of honor him every day. Even the call sign of the ship was Nagadoches, which is where he's from. And we sort of honor his legacy with the ship. And it's a destroyer is support for a carrier, but they can also steam on their own. So all the missions that we do are kind of in his honor.
Oh, that's kind of cool. And I will also echo Patty's words. Thank you, all three of you, for your service as we celebrate too this Memorial Day weekend.
Absolutely.
That was pretty cool. How long did you serve on the ship?
5 years.
Wow.
And that's where I earned my Sailor of the Year.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Congrats on that too. That's amazing. I I'm going to say no, Carol, because I think, well, maybe not. I don't know. Have any of you been stationed on Okinawa or Korea? Mike, I know your dad was in Okinawa.
Yeah, he was in Okinawa between coming in and out of Vietnam.
I went for a bunch of exercises over a number of years in Korea. So we spent a lot of time both in the U.S. Doing home station work, and then going to Korea to do the exercises, and then before coming home. So I did spend quite a bit of time there.
And Aaron, were you ever at China Lake?
I was not. I was mostly West Coast, Western Pacific, and then the Oscar Austin is stationed out of Norfolk, and that's where I met my husband and retired.
That's pretty cool. Okay, let's move on to Anne. Anne has an extremely interesting Medal of Honor winner. This one she educated me on probably about a year ago almost now. But if you will describe Dr. Walker for us, she is a character.
So Dr. Mary Edwards Walker is the first and only female recipient of the Medal of Honor. She was one of the first cohort of people to get it, so the standards were a little bit different than they are today. So what she did might not seem like it matches like what one of the more modern recipients has done, but she was also the second female physician in the United States, and she was actually a contract surgeon. So she couldn't become a military officer in the United States under the standards of the day, but she wanted to volunteer anyway. She was brought up as an abolitionist, so it was something that was very central to her life. So she was at Bull Run and Chickamauga, and she was captured by the Confederacy and was a prisoner of war in one of their prisoner of war camps. And you may or may not have heard about how horrible some of the prisoner of war camps during that war were, but they were absolutely terrible, and caused her a lifelong problem with her eyes, with her vision. And so she was awarded it for services rendered. She's one of a handful of civilians ever awarded it, and she lived until 1919. In 1917, she and 915 or 916 other recipients had their medals rescinded. They bunch of different reasons, but they changed the standards and decided that they shouldn't have that anymore. But she continued to wear her medal openly every day for the rest of her life after it was rescinded. And then 60 years later, in 1977, President Carter restored her Medal of Honor, so she's still on the list of recipients now.
I did not know that we had so many women in prisoner camps in the Civil War. So that was enlightening to me as well. They just kind of threw her in there.
Yep, and they designated her as the physician to care for all the other female prisoners while she was in the prisoner of war camp, which was, I believe, on her citation.
What else is interesting? So she died in 1919, and as those of you that are kind of older like me, I was, I guess, in elementary, going middle school, maybe when Carter was there. That is a long time afterwards that he restored her Medal of Honor.
Yeah, 60 years.
I mean, that's amazing. Oh, and we have Joku. Let's see the bingo mug. We love the bingo mug. Okay, Mike, you ready to talk about yours? Let me bring yours up. If you give me just a second here, let me get the link for everybody. And Mike is going to talk about Dan Daly.
Yeah, Dan, in Marine Corps boot camp, as you learn Marine Corps history, which is part of what you have to do to be a good Marine, They always teach us about 3 Marines. Chesty Puller, of course, he's like the legendary Marine won 5 Navy Crosses, but Dan Daly and Smedley Butler are Marines who have won 2 Congressional Medals of Honor. And Dan Daly actually is one of the rare guys where he actually did not receive his 2nd Medal of Honor posthumously. So he got his first one during the Boxer Rebellion in China, where he single-handedly fought off a Boxer attack. And then he got his other one serving in the war in Haiti. And then in World War I, he really cemented himself as a legend in the Marine Corps. During the Battle of Belleau Wood, when the Marines were going up against the Germans, the Marines had been training with Enfield 03 rifles to shoot to 500 yards. So when the Germans attacked, they were hitting them before the Germans got in range, but the Germans kept coming. And when it became time for hand-to-hand combat, he stood up, yelled to his men, and I'm going to clean this up, Sandy.
No, not yet.
Come on, you SOBs. Do you want to live forever? And they charged the Germans. And the Germans, after the battle, said it was like fighting devil dogs or Teufelhund. And that's how the Marine Corps got the nickname Devil Dogs. So that's
From
Dan
him.
Daly.
So how many went to do that initial charge? Him and his men?
They were outnumbered by the Germans. So, but when they attacked, the Germans just like, the counterattack was so fierce, the Germans just were almost convinced they were outnumbered, retreated. And interestingly, after he retired from the Marine Corps, he led a simple life, if I remember correctly, as like a postman.
Oh,
didn't seek out glory or anything like that.
this is a puzzle.
Nice.
Yep.
Let me show you guys too. We created a little slide based on the Medal of Honor, and I'm going because we've got a couple people just now coming in. So I just dropped the bingo card again. Get your bingo card up, and let me show you a little presentation on the Medal of Honor. For those of you that might not know, this is pretty much the United States' highest honor that you can receive from the military. I say bravery, but it takes something as well as bravery. It takes this inner something to get a Medal of Honor. These are the different medals that a Medal of Honor, medals for the different services that we have. And they come from being exceptional in combat. And this was kind of interesting too. So Abraham Lincoln established it. A lot of people, I think, don't know that this was established for Civil War. And that's why I was thrilled that Ann picked Dr. Walker, because that is kind of the start of our Medal of Honor. And it's been earned through every major conflict in our history.
Can I share one interesting little quick story?
Sure.
Something people may not realize who haven't been in the military. If you're a Medal of Honor winner and you walk into a room, and you could be a private, everybody of a rank in that room, all the way up to a 5-star general, has to salute you.
Wow.
So Audie Murphy, who we all know from World War II, is like one of the most decorated persons ever, was on a movie set when a general went to visit him. And the general walked up, said hi, and he just stood there and stared at him. And finally, the general saluted him, and then he would talk to him.
Oh, so Audie wouldn't talk to the general
till he recognized his respect. Yeah.
Interesting. So we have over 3,500 individuals that have been awarded this since the Civil Wars. And the criteria is really going above and beyond the call of duty. Our president is the one who actually awards it. And I will have 3 that I'm going to showcase real quick as well. So Desmond Doss was a conscientious objector, but he saved 75 lives during the Battle of Okinawa, as we were talking about that. And then Alvin York is someone really dear to me. He's a World War I hero who captured 132 soldiers. Almost everybody knows Alvin York's story with the military. There's been a movie. Almost everybody knows that. But what most people do not know that is when he came home, everybody wanted him to talk about his war experiences, and he did not. He did not want to have anything to do with it, not because he was tired of it or embarrassed of it or just didn't want to discuss it. The reason why is he took every bit of notoriety that he had to give back to his home state of Tennessee and nearby Appalachian areas to try and educate kids and poor kids throughout the Depression. He spent every last dime he had giving to his foundation to do that. So for us in the Appalachians, we know him probably a little bit better for what he did after his service than as much as beforehand. And we talked about Audie Murphy. Definitely check out Audie's profile on WikiTree. It is fantastic. I give lots of kudos and benefit to the people that have worked on his profile. It's amazing. And Audie is just an amazing character too, because he did have this whole second life after he left the war. He, like Mike said, he had this huge movie career.
And he wasn't a big man at all. The tendency is to think that people who've received such an honor will be larger than life, but he was actually very not a tall man, not very slender. So larger than life definitely didn't reflect physically for him.
Yeah, and interestingly, in the movie they made about him in World War II, he played himself.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
One thing you mentioned earlier that there have been over 3,500 awards received, but there's only 65 Medal of Honor recipients alive, and that's partially because so many are posthumous.
Oh, that's interesting too. We were talking about that yesterday, actually, with Mike's dad. Mike's dad is retired from the Marine Corps as well, and we were talking about the Purple Heart. Do you automatically get a Purple Heart? If you're alive or not. And, there was a debate over, people were saying Purple Heart's only for the living, but not entirely true. And that we'll talk about a little bit more with the roll of honor as well. So I just wanted to point out, these are the medals, and you can see the totals listed for each branch. The Coast Guard had one. And the Air Force 19. I would have thought the Air Force would have had a little bit more. But again, I think what they're doing is back when they were combined, the Army Air Force were kind of one unit. So some of those Army might be Air Force as well.
Yeah, the Air Force wasn't a separate force until after World War II. So that really affected the numbers.
Hey, this is cool. So Tabor's bonus son is named Audie Murphy. That is so cool. That is very, very cool. Okay, you guys ready for some bingo? Let me get the bingo set up here, and we will talk bingo. Bingo will go pretty quick because we have some other files that we want to show you on WikiTree. We have some other stories to share with you as well, and get to know our 3 WikiTreeers here.
Hey, Sandy.
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I was just going to throw out there that we do have a profile for the one Coast Guard recipient.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Who is it, Eowyn?
His name is Douglas Albert Monroe.
And what did he do?
He's Canadian. Let's see. Well, for one, he was killed in action on a Higgins boat at the Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands during the Second Battle of the, I'm going to butcher that, Matanikau Battle of the Matanikau. It says, for extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in action above and beyond the call of duty, as petty officer in charge of a group of 24 Higgins boats engaged in the evacuation of a battalion of Marines trapped by enemy Japanese forces at the Guadalcanal. After making preliminary plans for the evacuation of nearly 500 beleaguered Marines, Monroe, under constant strafing by enemy machine guns on the island and at great risk of his life, daringly led 5 of his small craft towards the shore. As he closed the beach, he signaled the others to land, and then in order to draw the enemy's fire and protect the heavily loaded boats, he valiantly placed his craft with its 2 small guns as a shield between the beachhead and the Japanese.
Wow.
When the perilous task of evacuation was nearly completed, Monroe was instantly killed by enemy fire, but his crew, 2 of whom were wounded, carried on until the last boat had loaded and cleared the beach.
Wow. Wow. He put his wow right in between to protect. Wow. What year was this?
1942.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. If that doesn't call for a Medal of Honor award, I don't know what would. That's pretty impressive. So he knew he was kind of like a ship kamikaze. He knew he wasn't going to make it, and he still did it.
Yep.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you found that. Okay, you guys ready for bingo? Let me explain the rules. So for bingo, you can get horizontal, vertical, diagonal. I do not believe there are free spaces in these today. There might be, but if there is, go ahead and click on that now. And if you have won bingo at all with WikiTree, since we started this, you're not eligible for the prize yet. Next month, it does start to roll over. It'll be 6 months. Can you believe it, anyone? 6 months?
No.
I went just like that.
Awesome.
And I will tell you guys, we all started this because we were kind of addicted to bingo during WikiTree Day. So, so that's how it kind of started. So remember, click on each one. This will go fairly quickly. They're pretty easy to do. If you win, then we will show you or how to get a prize. Ms. Eowyn will be the one that's awarding that prize out to you guys. It's up to a $30 value for some cool WikiTree branded information. Like Joku just got the mug. I love the mug. And sorry, I don't have my mug with me today. And you guys ready? Let's go. The first person who gets bingo is the first person who types it in the chat. So the first word is remember, and that's appropriate for this weekend because for us here in the United States, Memorial Day weekend is the day that we remember. I'm sure a lot of you have gone through your downtowns and a lot of crosses, flags with the members' names are on there. I know in our downtown, they have them. I think what they have, Mike. I think they had over 1,000 this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is also a time that people go to national cemeteries as well to decorate. And the Air Force is one of our militaries. And then, of course, the Marines. And I will point out a couple things. So the Army are called soldiers. The Air Force are called airmen. I don't know if they call them air person, airwoman, but airmen. The Marines and the Navy, Marines are called Marines, the Navy's called sailors. A salute. Now, I'll ask Ann and Aaron, are you guys is pretty neurotic about your salute? So much so that when you're watching movies, you instantly know which actor is doing it poorly.
It sticks out like a sore thumb.
Almost all of them.
Yeah. In general, presidents are the worst.
It's true.
Because I know Mike will see a movie and he goes, "That's a poor
I'll
salute."
see this with the thumb down.
Well, that's why she says it's not like a sore thumb.
If I yell at the screen, drop and give me 50.
Hero, and that's really what we're talking about. It's really these Medal of Honor winners. They have something in them that just I think it is in them naturally, but at the spur of the moment, at that moment, they become a hero that probably even surprises themselves sometimes.
Yeah, I meant to say with Oscar Austin, I got so excited talking about the boat. He left cover. There was a Marine that was injured and he went to go get them. And on his way to get them, he actually went on a grenade because it was going to hit both of them. And he knew that he was going to be able to block the other guy's injuries.
And I mean, that just is amazing. That is someone who at that moment makes that decision and knows they're not going to survive. It takes a really amazing person to come around to that. And artillery, combat, commitment. This is a really interesting thing. So let me ask Ann and Aaron, if you're child comes up to you and says they want to join the military, what do you say?
I can't imagine either of mine actually doing that, but I would absolutely support them.
Oh, we lost Eowyn. Where'd Eowyn go? And Aaron?
My
I-
husband and I have discussed it, and as difficult as it would be for us, both of us were in, and we know the hardships that you face. We'd be really proud.
Let me tell you that Mike and I have discussed it with our son, and he came close, but a lot of people are surprised because, as you know, Marines love talking about Marines, and a lot of our friends and neighbors are surprised. Mike has never ever really talked to our son about it because, and I bring this up because of the word commitment. And you three know this already, but as Mike says, that's a check that your body signs to the US government, and there's only one person who can really make that commitment. And that's the person signing the check.
I will say that, Sandy, you missed an opportunity to talk about the last one because I ended my career as an air defense artillerist.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I started my career in artillery.
So you missed 2 chances to talk
You
about
guys book in. Military, this is pretty much what we're talking about today. Militia. Now, this is a term that really goes back to before the Civil War. This is really around that time frame where local communities would come together and create what a militia to kind of protect. And then the Civil War adopted some of those.
Well, it kind of goes back to the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, but it,
The National Guard traces its roots back to the militia. I was National Guardsman for a long time.
that's fine. Carol, you might have a bad card, but it might be because you're enjoying vacation without us. That could be why you have a bad card. We're jealous. Infantry. Who wants to describe infantry? Anne?
They're the infantry are the ones in the front. They're the basic building block. All the rest of us are important, but if you don't have the infantry, for instance, the artillery, it has a hard time protecting itself.
Yep.
There's usually infantry assigned to be there for us and protect the artillery so that the artillery can do its job. Tanks are supposed to be run with infantry to assist because tanks are really not great at doing stuff close up.
And Valor, which are all our Medal of Honor recipients definitely had the Valor. And that could be, like you said, Aaron, that's that something that just pops up at that time, like for Austin, that just comes up. Sacrifice. And again, that's another thing. And when we say sacrifice, I don't always think for any military worldwide, I don't think that this means, death. When you sign up for the military, you do sacrifice a lot. You travel. Imagine, Aaron, it's got to be really hard to have littles, to start a family in the military. You and your husband could be at different places.
We actually waited so long into my career to have children because we saw so many retirement ceremonies where the people's kids were getting ready to go to college and they had missed everything. You deploy so much and you're gone for so much. Every time the ships would pull in, we'd let all the new dads off the boat to go meet their children.
Oh, interesting. And I will say this is interesting because Mike's dad did not meet him for 2 weeks because he was on, a boat. And so the sacrifice is also for the children too, on a different way. I know my
absolutely.
stepdad was in the military, in the travel. Every time you got to a location, you'd get friends. You'd know exactly where all the stores and where to ride your bike. And then guess what? New deployment orders and you're moving out. But that's interesting. So you let all the new dads off the boat first. That's an interesting story.
Yeah, new dads, and we raffle off the first kiss.
Oh, courage. And how long would you be? What was the longest you were on the ship without getting back to see your family or off the ship?
10 months.
A lot can happen with a kid, or family in 10 months.
Yeah.
A tribute, and that's pretty much what we're doing today. And even though we are talking about Medal of Honor winners, that is a U.S. based thing. We do give tribute to everybody around the world. We had a lot of partners in our war wars, and soldier. Now, soldier, you're going to hear that from more Army. You would, for example, never call somebody from the Navy a soldier. I can't believe no one's won bingo. Perseverance. This goes a lot of ways, wouldn't you guys think? Okay, we have a bingo, but keep playing because I believe Mary has won earlier. So keep playing, guys. And Medal of Honor is exactly what we're talking about. What happens to the medals, I wonder, after the recipient passes away? Do they
stay with the family?
They stay with the family? I didn't know. I know that in Texas there is the Medal of Honor Museum. I didn't know. Maybe they got donated there.
Probably.
They can. Some
Okay,
families.
we're going to keep going because I think Carol. Would you say, Ann?
So some families do things like building a shadow box, which is a display of their family members' medals and so forth. I'm actually planning on doing one for multiple family members sometime soon.
Well, that brings us to an interesting point too. A lot of military are families. It's a tradition that goes through. So, I mentioned that Mike is a second generation Marine. Ann and Aaron, what about you guys?
My dad decided to join the Peace Corps instead. Both of my grandfathers were military. My grandfather on my father's side was a Navy Seabee, and my grandfather on my mother's side was a pilot instructor for the Army Air Corps.
Both of my grandfathers were Navy, and I actually found out since I joined WikiTree and started researching that my great-grandfather was also a pharmacist mate in the Navy.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. So researching your tree, you come up and you find military records. Okay, liberty, that's kind of the heart of it all. I would say, especially for those of you that know our history as a country, this is kind of the heart of it all. And probably for any country that wants to keep their liberties, you're going to fight for them. That's one of the things that we fight most for. We have had, I think, 3 or 4 bingo winners so far, but they have been past winners. And that's why they keep saying, keep playing. This is kind of funny. And usually we have a bingo winner by now. Okay, Davey, I will say that, Aaron, before you joined, we were having a little discussion on the songs of each branch. And I know everybody has probably heard Anchors Away. Oh, there we go.
It's catchy.
It is. It is. There we go. Abby, you won bingo. Okay, Abby, what you're going to do, let me remove this. You are going to email, let me bring it up real quick, Eowyn, and email her. Let her know that you won the bingo for the Medal of Honor bingo, the very first one. And she will get back to you with a link to the store. It's up to a $30 value. I do not have my bingo mug with me. I'm very sorry, but the bingo mug is the most popular item in the store. It's really, really cool. But take a look. There are shirts, sweatshirts, tote bags, hats, mugs, all kinds of things. So I agree with Carol. The mug truly is the best. And the mug that we get, I think most people are getting, is the entire black mug with the bingo logo on it. So definitely email Eowyn. She will let you know. We lost her feed, so she might pop back in real quick. So let me ask then, you guys, since you're here, we tend to have project leaders come in to talk about their project. And you guys are the guests, and you talked about the Medal of Honor. We're going to talk about the Roll of Honor in just a moment. But let me ask each of you the one singular question. Why did you join? So we've got, why did you join the Marines, the Army, the Navy? So Aaron, you want to start?
I felt a debt of honor and just an immense amount of gratitude to all the people that came before me, and the life that I was able to lead, grow up in safety and just having the freedom that we do. And I always knew I wanted to be in the military. I actually walked into the recruiter's office at 12 and I said, I want to join. And they laughed me out of there. And
Why?
I came back when I was 16 and started my paperwork. I actually had my parents sign me over at 17.
Really? So they knew you were
Yeah.
dedicated, you were not going to be talked out of this.
Yeah.
What about you, Ann?
I was a little bit older. My mother is a Quaker, so it was a very hard decision for me because I knew that my mother wouldn't support it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to learn to lead, and that was one of the best ways I could do it, and I could give back to my country at the same time I was doing it. So that was what my main motivation was.
How'd your mom take it?
She didn't talk to me for a long time. I'd call her when I was in basic training, and she'd answer the phone, but she wouldn't say anything.
She's probably so scared too, because the Quaker has a belief. But I gotta imagine being a mom myself. I gotta imagine you worry about your kids.
Yeah.
Mike?
Interestingly, my father never talked to me about joining the Marine Corps, but growing up around Marines, it just kind of developed a calling in me that's what I was going to do. You see him, you want to be like him.
See, it's kind of interesting too. I will tell you a funny story about Mike's dad. He was a fun guy when he was younger, apparently, and he was from Minnesota. And he needed a job, wanted a job, and right at the time, wasn't it, Mike, that the military was the best option.
He was basically failing out of college because he was spending all his time in a fraternity playing cards and drinking beer. So he decided he was going to go in the military, and he wanted to go in the Army first and be a paratrooper, but the Army was going to make him wait 3 months, and he wanted to go in now. And the Marine said, "You can go in right now."
So he joined.
So he joined, and he was in boot camp in a couple days.
Oh, really? So he went with who he wanted to go first.
Whoever took him first.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit. Let me see if I can bring this up as well. Let's talk a little bit about the Roll of Honor with WikiTree. The Roll of Honor is a global. It's not just based on the U.S., even though we're going to talk mostly probably about the U.S. It's basically for WikiTree or anywhere. If you died in battle, then you're going to be on the Roll of Honor. Does somebody want to describe the Medal of Honor is really just for those really extreme valor acts, but the Roll of Honor is for those that just passed away because of their injuries in battle, right? So if I was injured, say in World War I, and I died 5 years later, would I still be on the Roll of Honor, technically?
If your wound is what killed you.
The wound is what killed. Okay.
So,
because I think that we get confused. We think that the Roll of Honor is if you've been in the military and then you live a long, happy life, then you pass away, you're on the Roll of Honor. And that's not truly the purpose of the Roll of Honor. It's more if you died in battle or because of battle wounds, correct? Would you say?
It's
Yeah.
it's kind of not very well delineated.
That's what I thought. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what I thought. And I know that almost every country recognizes that phrase Roll of Honor. So it's not just a part of United States history. And
Well, I know I've been working just this weekend on the USS Arizona and the sailors that went down during the Pearl Harbor attacks. And for example, we may not know exactly what actions were taken because everything was so hectic and everything happened so fast. So we may not be able to say, so-and-so took this action unless it was very early on, seen by a survivor, and the story was carried on. But all of the sailors and Marines that lost their lives are on the Roll of Honor because they still made that sacrifice.
let me answer to a bingo question. So June, what I do is I list the bingo cards, the link in the chat, and then you pull it up. And when I call the names or the words, then you click on that particular word on your bingo card to get bingo. I made it easy. There's no fill in the blanks. I already gave you all the words, and the words are randomized. Nobody's ever asked us. The words are randomized, so everybody gets ideally a different card to get bingo. Okay, let's answer a couple questions. Maybe you guys can help. What about those who died of illness while serving? And I believe those are on the Roll of Honor as well. And I do know that WikiTree does have those type of categories as well. I will take the U.S. Civil War only because that's what I know. But I know that they are through different branches, different countries. For example, the U.S. Civil War has died during battle, died as prisoner of war, died of disease. So those type of things I have seen typically are considered a Roll of Honor because they died while they were in service. And usually to die of disease is connected to their service. Okay, and then this is interesting. So Steve and his great uncle made it through Pearl Harbor. And I showed Aaron a picture. If anybody has a Twitter account or their USS Arizona, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute, has a Twitter account feed. And they show a picture of Pearl Harbor where all the ships are literally, side by side down a row. And when the Japanese came in, that's how they easily took them out.
Yeah, Battleship Row was full.
That's a good way of putting it. But Aaron has a good point about this. That was a learning situation.
Yep.
It forever changed the way that we moor our ships, the way that we home port our ships, who we have in port at any one time. And, that's a lesson written in the blood of thousands, and we'll never, forget that.
And it's interesting too, because surviving Pearl Harbor, I can't even imagine. Mike and I were talking about this earlier this week when we were working on the USS Arizona profiles to WikiTree. A lot of these people were asleep. A lot of these people had, there's no warning. There's no aircraft warning like there is now. It just happened. And then with all those ships taking out and severely damaging our ability to even fight for ourselves. Okay, let me see. Does anybody else have any questions for our guest? Okay. Does the second bingo card work, guys? I have a couple questions about that. I want to make sure it works. And Carol had another question. This is good. So if there were soldiers who served in World War I and were exposed to mustard gas and died, say 15 years later from complications, would they be on the Roll of Honor? What do you guys say?
So the U.S. Roll of Honor organization site doesn't actually even require you to have been wounded. It just says you must have served to have a profile on the site. So that the problem is that there's different people have different ideas about what's required.
And
I would say yes, if it's one of those, a biological or a chemical agent that was used against the soldiers, that's something that their service specifically exposed them to, and that was the reason for their death.
And that would be the same as the Agent Orange, I guess, in Vietnam as well. Oh, sorry guys that it says Bing instead of bingo. I get it now. I got to tell you, I did it really, really quick. And the reason why is this one was at the second bingo card was actually given to me by somebody who created the words, not a WikiTree, I might add, or else it would have been spell check. Here's another question. How does the Distinguished Service Cross differ from the Medal of Honor?
The Medal of Honor is basically a in combat valor kind of the thing. Distinguished Service Cross is for those who have distinguished themselves through meritorious service to the government. So it's one is kind of a distinguished service, one is kind of a medal for valor.
The Medal of Honor is the highest, right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, the Distinguished Service Cross is one rank below. The description of the Distinguished Service Cross is the second highest military decoration for military members who display extraordinary heroism in combat with armed enemy force. So there are non-combat medals, but it's the second highest combat-related medal.
And for the Navy, it'd be the Navy Cross.
Yeah.
Okay, let me bring up the second card. And I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, I should have proofed this a little bit. Well, I don't know. Mine says Medal of Honor bingo too. Let me make sure you guys have the right card. And it is a smaller one. Oh, I get it. Okay, I see. Because it's only four squares across. So I get it. So it definitely is a smaller one. My apologies. But that just means that somebody will win quicker, right? Okay, you guys ready to go? Oh, here's another quick question. Do generals salute the Distinguished Service Cross?
No.
Oh, so there's another difference. The Medal of Honor actually comes with monetary and other compensations too.
That's true.
Which lesser medals do not.
And I know from just hanging around Mike for the past 30 years, they also typically have a license tag that has the blue ribbon in the Medal of Honor. And you can, if you ever see one of those in your grocery store parking lot or wherever it is, stop. Give yourself a moment to realize that you are amongst someone is driving that car that has extreme valor. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Same rules apply. If you have won bingo so far this year, you're not eligible to win just yet. Our next bingo is the start over again point but you have to wait 6 months from when you won your bingo prize. Horizontal, diagonal, vertical. I do not believe, since this is a short one, that there is a free space, but if there is, go ahead and click it now. When the word comes up, go ahead and click it with your mouse. The first person to win bingo is the first person that gets bingo on their card and also types in bingo in the chat. Do not close down your bingo card because, as we've seen in the last one, I think 4 or 5 people won bingo, but they said keep playing. So never close down your bingo card until we have it confirmed. Okay, so prisoner of war. And there are prisoner of war, as we talked about. Dr. Walker was a prisoner of war as a Medal of Honor winner. And there she is. What timing? And again, the only female, and what was really interesting is Ann and I were talking about this. She's the only female, and her award was taken away. So Ann actually went back in to make sure that she was listed as a Medal of Honor winner in WikiTree.
So another thing that, and actually I have to go back in. There's a problem with the Medal of Honor page. It only goes up to the letter P.
Yeah, we have a lot. I think there were about 300 in the category.
Mhm.
And like we said, there are over 3,000 Medal of Honor winners. So if anybody wants to add to the Medal of Honor winners, if military profiles are something that you enjoy doing, and there is a wealth of information for every Medal of Honor winner, you will not want for a source. There are tons of sources and everything. That would be a way to help WikiTree and the Military and War Project on WikiTree. In the Korean War. Korean War doesn't get talked about as much as the bigger wars, the War I and II. In the Republic of Vietnam, and again, my apologies for the thing, but Private Oscar Austin. This was Aaron's pick for the Medal of Honor winner. You can tell I was going fast. Aaron and I have this thing. We come from the same area, and a lot of times we leave out words in our sentences because we know what we're talking about, but it is a function of the area we were raised.
It drives my husband crazy.
Mine too. Camp Lejeune. And this would be one of the main, I guess, boot camps for the
Marine Corps base, Camp Lejeune.
Base. Okay. You think I'm going to get demerit points for that one?
Yeah, those guys on Paris Island will get pissed. Yeah.
The Medal of Honor, and that's what we're talking about today. And thank you, Carol. Carol's corrected me. It was a conflict, not a war, for the Korean War. And Mahaplin actually had a cousin on the USS Arizona. And before we leave today, I do want to share a really, really interesting and great thing to do this weekend with WikiTree. In World War I.
Am I allowed to win?
No.
Didn't think so. I'm just playing anyway.
Next time you can win.
Okay.
Purple Heart Medal. This one is always tricky for me for WikiTree, and I don't know how to answer this one. But if anybody has ever had a profile where you add the Purple Heart, you'll notice that there are different options for it, and they're not always designated which option in the sources. So this one's always kind of tricky for me. Oh, Jupa bingo! That was really quick. That was really, really quick. Congratulations, June. June, didn't you say this was your first time too? That's awesome. This is interesting. So we'll be setting up over 600 flags at our cemetery on Saturday. Okay, June, let me tell you how to get your bingo prize. What you're going to do is you're going to email Eowyn, and she's going to email you back the link to the store. And it's up to $30. It's a WikiTree branded store, so you can get the bingo mug, which everybody loves. I think over all of WikiTree, the bingo mug is the #1 item in the store. You can get bag, a hat, a long sleeve t-shirt, short sleeve, whatever you'd like. That's up to $30. But email her and let her know that you won the bingo from the Medal of Honor, and she will get you all set up. So congratulations. I love it. It is a first-time winner. I always tell people, come bingo. You never know. You could be really, really lucky and win. Let's talk about something else that's going on this weekend real quick. So as I mentioned, this is Memorial Day weekend for us in the United States. And there is something going on, a pop-up. WikiTree has these little pop-up challenges that pop up at any time, and they usually relate to something going on in the world or the date that's going on. And we have a USS Arizona pop-up going on. The USS Arizona was bombed at Pearl Harbor. It sunk. Something I did not know is 85 or up to 150 of those sailors and Marines were actually buried on land, and they were commingled. It is not an individual cemetery. So there is a group called Operation 85 that is DNA testing and they're giving free DNA tests out to family members, and they're trying to DNA test these sailors and Marines so they can repatriate them and let their family have a proper burial. So it's something that if you are interested in military profiles, it's really, really easy to do. Don't you think, Aaron? The sources are up there. It's
Oh yeah. The USS Arizona Memorial has done a great job of collecting, like, even newspaper interviews with family and everything else. So there's sources that you might not even usually get to work with. You know, a lot of times we're just working straight off of census, birth, death records. There are really, you can really enrich these profiles and make these people, you know, honor their lives.
It's really amazing too. I'm going to get this wrong, and there is a G2G on it. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick, and you guys will be amazed. Aaron and I have been posting up on the G2G as well. Interesting finds that we have. I have one Marine that joined the ship literally the night before, and he was waiting for his, service orders to come through where he's going to go to next. Aaron, you had an interesting one as well with best friends.
Yeah, two guys from a small town in Colorado. They had grown up playing football together, and they graduated high school together. They signed into the Navy together, and they were actually both on ships at Pearl Harbor. One survived, and one was killed on the Arizona. And the surviving member, even 70 years later, he was interviewed, and he said he never could bring himself. He walked up to his friend's house and couldn't bring himself to ring the door because he just didn't know what to say to his friend's parents because he had so much survivor's guilt.
I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a story I read. Well, I knew we were doing this. I did some reading. A lot of the survivors of the Arizona, upon their death, were cremated and had their ashes spread. And I mean, I've walked Arlington, and Arlington is a powerful thing. You see all those crosses. But when I went to the Arizona Memorial, it affects you in a different way.
I don't know if it's because when you go to Arlington, you know a little bit of what to expect. You're going to see a field of stones, and maybe this field is so large that at times you can't take it in the moment. But when you go to the Arizona and you actually walk through that building they have over the water, and you know what you're standing over.
Yeah. And the Arizona had over 36 sets of brothers and 3 sets of 3 brothers who were on the ship when it went down.
I can't imagine the parents.
So,
because I think you think, oh, good, they're going together. They'll protect each other. They'll be safe.
And this was
not
a common thing in the military and in the Navy. And because of so many ships that went down, like the USS Jonah with the 5 Sullivan brothers, that they actually put into the Navy did it first, that family members could no longer serve on the same ship.
And I'll put the link into one of the Sullivan Brothers pages that describes that. I know that we were going to try and show it. We're running a little late, but I'll put the link in. If you guys want to click on it and review it when you have time. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed. This is really great. I really appreciate you guys sharing all your stories as well. This is fabulous. So, my son was honor guard during 9/11. And he was at the White House for 4th of July in different ballparks and supposed to be at the church across the street from the towers. I just got chills from that. And I know Barry said that her son was working with the DNA project from the USS Arizona as well. And they pulled a Wisconsin sailor from the mass grave. That is amazing. And that's really what we're trying to do with the USS Arizona pop-up that's going on this weekend, is if we can fulfill all the profiles up on WikiTree, maybe those that are doing the DNA search would make it a little bit easier, knowing that we source well, we give the full bios. They can actually come to WikiTree to help find ancestors, or excuse me, descendants, so they can get proper burials for these sailors and Marines. So I mean, that's amazing. And I agree. If Hawaii is great and fun, but if you do ever go anywhere near Pearl Harbor, you just make sure you go to the memorial for the USS Arizona. It's something that you can't even describe, right, Mike?
Yeah, you can't.
You really, when you're there, you just really gotta.
Carol described it pretty well. It just reaches inside you and grabs you.
I have to say, as a sailor, pulling into port is always fun. Everybody's looking forward to going out on Liberty and seeing family and things like that. But when you pull into Hawaii, when you pass the Arizona, everyone topside renders a salute until you're out of view, and it's so emotional. It's very heavy.
It's your brother, it's your, your people. When you there and you realize that they went before you, they did the exact same thing you did, signed papers, joined, went through your training to do the exact same thing that you're doing now. And you realize they didn't make it. So it's humbling. It's humbling. So I want to thank everybody that joined us today. Please go look at WikiTree's Medal of Honor category. There, like I said, I think there's only 300 some in there, and there's over 3,000 that need added to WikiTree. If anybody wants to chip in, that would be fabulous. Like, the sources are out there. They're so easy to find. If you come across any soldiers, Marines, sailors, as you are working through and you see that maybe someone died during battle, add the category Roll of Honor. That would be helpful as well. And if you have time this weekend to do even just one or two profiles for the USS Arizona pop-up, please do so. There's 1,177. And I think when fellow WikiTreeer Susan created this idea in the space page, there were about 25. And I noticed there are almost 60 in there now. So people have been working on them. So please, even like I said, you might think, you probably need a lot of help. You're going to want me to do a whole 50 of them. Just one or two would really, really help. The sources are out there. Susan's given the page that has the sources, the categories, the stickers. She's made it very easy for everybody just to do a pop-up. I want to thank all three of you for joining us. This has been fun having WikiTreeers and to talk about not only the military categories on WikiTree, but also your lives. So I want to join everybody that's also mentioned. Thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, then I will see everybody in a couple hours. We have another interesting bingo coming up to celebrate the newest U.S. Space Force. We're going to talk about astronauts. So if you are an astronaut fan, join us. But if you're not an astronaut fan and you still like bingo, join us anyway, because we have David Randall that's coming on board for that. And he's also going to discuss what happens if you have a particular interest in something and you want to create a mini project. He's going to show us how to do it, because that's exactly how the USS Arizona mini project happened and the astronauts. So thanks everybody for joining us. See you next time.